Welcome to the side-by-side talk from me. My name is David, also known as Xetus. I'm definitely not looking like this anymore, so I put my official GitHub picture up here so you can recognize me anyway. So I'm a core JHipster member since 2016, and as of the JHipster streams, I'm responsible for the leading of JHipster UAA, as it was my initial idea. I also supported a little bit in the Kubernetes stuff from JHipster. Yeah, but mostly I'm known for the UAA stuff. And suddenly I became side-by-side speaker today. So I'm going to tell how this came up. So we had plenty of presentations today, and they were all about the light side of JHipster. And I'm the bad guy who is telling you the dark side of JHipster. Because what I mean with dark side with JHipster, we have a lot of cool features which the generator and the platform so far support. And the total dream of the JHipster contributors is that one a day you can just define a JDL, put all the thing inside, and then you just generate your application and you never touch the code again because it's everything done and you can just deliver it and your customer is happy. But the sad story is that is not the true until today. So when you generate with all the options you got, you have to change your application. So that needs customization. And yeah, what happens if you change generated code? Then you land in Hell's Kitchen. Because like if you do once the changing the generated code, and then thinking, oh, I wanted to change some of the options, like maybe not adding a language, but switching the adapter, switching something on, switching something off. Or even better, you want to upgrade. Then you just run into merge conflicts and have a lot of stuff to work and end up that you're not really upgrading your JHipster application because you're afraid of all the merge conflicts. So last year, we had an interesting talk about the side-by-side approach by Antonio Gonçalves. He was talking about how the normal user is using JHipster, like prototyping is when you just generate your application from time to time until you're happy and then start to code. So the idea about side-by-side is that you don't touch the code if it's not absolutely necessary. You try to extend the files with new files and not in these files. So logically, what happens when you regenerate your application or make upgrades, then the generator is always touching the generated files, but is not aware of the files you added to the system. And that makes regeneration easy and make upgrade easy. So the thing is, I was thinking about not telling you how to do in theory, but to show how to do it in practice. And it was the first thing I came around was, well, what did I show code? Block example? We have seen a lot of block example, or bookstores, or whatever. And then I came to a personal thing, which is also the answer why I wasn't contributing that much code in the past year, because, yeah, I get a little bit crazy about writing music. It's actually comparable to code. I opened an own band and just started to write songs. And during 1 year, I wrote 22 songs with 4 hours playtime. And someday my band came just around me and say, well, we can play 1 song out of 22. That's not enough to make a concert. So what we maybe should pick 6 songs and then like practice them and make something out of it. Well, and yeah, we decided that every band member could like choose 6 songs, and then we will decide. So obviously we need a system for voting on songs, and that led me to my idea, which I'm going to code, a project which I called Hipster Band. And from this time, I really changed from the hippie-like to the hipster again, so my old glasses are back. Well, I start with showing the JDL, which I decided to make. Yeah, that's with the mic a little bit complicated. I want to stand like this. It's a pretty simple JDL, as you see. Can you hear me well, or I should use the microphone? Huh? It's okay. Well, so as you see, it's a quite simple JDL here. We have bands. Bands have songs, and you can vote on a song. So the thing is, I want to customize this application in backend and in frontend. From the backend, the idea is, if I am in a band, I want just to see all my bands, but I don't want to see as a normal user the bands of other people. So I can say that's my band, and I'm in 3 bands, for example, and if another guy is in other bands, I just don't see it. Or I'm an admin. And I want to have a quite quick logic to, when I click on a band details, that I see the songs of it and the number of votes in a just simple way. So what I'm going to do in the first place is take my application here, make a new directory, yeah, just check out if everything works far so good. That's the same JDL as I showed right now. So now JHipster import JDL app.jh. So you have seen the message that I'm not on the current upstream version of JHipster. That is, I'm going to make an upgrade afterwards. So in the meantime, open. So everything worked well so far. I'm going just to start to generate the application just to see what is happening here. I switched off the faker because I want to make this the entities on my own. And here, npm start. So that's what our application looks like. Very basic. I didn't make much things. It's a monolith, no microservice, so I can like make stuff here. And those guys are inside here, and I can make a song. It's pretty straightforward. I'm the one who made it. It's from this band, and so far. But as soon as we go to the vote, from the logical point of view, that's actually the way how JHipster generates it, but I don't want to vote it in that way. I want to have a button, so that we will go there. So the first thing is that we want to have the logic with the band, so we only see the bands we should see. And in the JDL, I choose to have a repository layer. Of course, it's always this way. And I have also services for my for the repositories, but I'm not doing the service implementation. I will say later something about a different approach. But here you just get to band extend Tory. That's going to be so by extending the repository, that automatically gets a JPA repository like the actually repository here. with all the stuff here, but I'm not changing here anymore anything. I just add some stuff. And add a query like this. I quickly explain what I did here. I just built a JPQL query. Oh, it's a little bit hard to see in the end here. Which is actually just saying, I want to see only my my bands where I'm part of in. Or if I am already admin, then I see every band. So the next thing is to carry this into a service. One approach which I'm showing here, because that was my initial plan, is to say, okay, band extend that service. It's a class, it's a service. So instead of providing the normal band repository, I say band extended repository. So now IntelliJ does not complain anymore. And then I override the find all. And instead of returning the normal way, I just say return band extended repository, find my visible bands. So if I just add a new controller for which will also be extended, band extended resource. If someone remembers the last year, Antonio was talking about that it's not possible to just extend REST controllers, and I truly believed him until I just tried it some weeks ago and figured out it actually works. So what you can do is you'd say I extend the band resource, but there's another way. I will show it in a different, because I will extend the song resource too. It's a REST controller. That we have to decide a different mapping. My convenience is to say that I add a version number after that's German API v1. That's actually a pattern which I'm used to do in the last years. So I put a version number into my REST controllers. So if there's new changes, new DTOs or whatever, I just add a new REST controller with new objects instead of changing the last one. Because in microservice infrastructure, it's always like there are some services requesting old APIs. So here I just get the service, which extended service. Say it's like this. And up from this point, I don't have to do anything, because here we got the band resource, which actually gets the servers. And for get mapping all, this is something when we override in service layer. So for this here we are already fine with it. And the next thing is, I just show what I want to do. Is like if I go into a band, that's the way how it looks like. And here is the place where I want to see. One thing is I want to see the songs which belongs to the band, and also the number of votes and a button. So for the number of votes, I need some kind of new data object, which I just put into here, and I call it song with votes. So first is I add a song here, and before I go over, I say I ignore the property audio content. That will, I can show you why, because if I upload an entire song in WAV format or in MP3 format, it's several megabytes, and the default API will expose blobs to the front end, and for like megabyte big sizes, that's pretty a lot. So I ignore it here, and here I just say long number votes, and I'm not as cool as Josh Long. I'm not using Lombok, I just do this. So you can see a lot of discussion why JHipster is still not using Lombok. And that doesn't take so much time to make this, especially in IntelliJ. And then we go here, make a new song extended repository. I forget to say it's an interface. It's an interface. Song repository. Your repository. Come on. Yes. Okay. This is a little bit bigger query, so I just copy-pasted it to save some time. I'm guessing you're not excited to watch me 5 minutes of building this query. So that's it's actually the same. I want to see only songs which I belong to, and I want to count the number of votes to it. So in this object song with votes, I will have embedded the actual song inside and the count of the votes which is coming out of the query here. So then we go to next. Still the same service. Yeah, actually I can make this here, right? Wasn't it here? Yeah. About services, there is a point which Christoph was telling me right before the talk. There's a different approach, because when you generate entities, you can choose service classes or service implementations. If you do this with service implementations, you can just create a new service which implements the interface generated by JHipster and market as a primary bean. In that case, your REST controllers automatically can get the new modified service without even touching the REST controller. It's a good information I didn't have, so I just maybe the next time, maybe we'll do some documentation on this. Yeah, the same art service, extend song service, private, finalize song extended repository. So, and now, like, public list song with votes, get song with votes by band. It's quite simple. And in the first place, I do the same stuff here in the band extended repository because of a RESTful specification. I will say that here comes response entity of list of, oh no, I can just make it simpler. Song with votes. List song, and here we got a long ID that's for the band, and we say still bands, the ID of the band, and just say songs. So that's going to be a path variable. So then we get here band extended service, find one by ID, map song service. So that's pretty much it. And the last thing to do is, if we want to make a vote, we make it just a simple API, song extended resource. And here's the other way how you can work with extending REST controllers without extending them. If you run into issues with extending REST controllers, which I hadn't, but if you get, here's the way how you can do it. API v1, and instead of extending it, that was what I doing a lot, is just say I take the actual song resource and here I just get this is new song resource with the song extended service. So, and in order to make this class having all the mappings which the actual resource has, we delegate them just this way. If we do this, we have to take care, because IntelliJ doesn't carry all of the annotations. It's here, this one. And here we have to take the part variable to it. The same here. So into the song servers, we just add some logic to here it is, and then we make a simple vote API here, post mapping on songs vote. I'm a bit nervous in typing, sorry for that. Song vote for song by long ID, return song, find one ID, map to vote for song, and then return entity of okay of the song, or else throw no such element exception. So we can throw this exception because we have it in an exception translator. So that's pretty much all of the backend part, which is quite fast to do. If we don't want to build front end first to see if that is working, what we can do is just rerun the application and use this Swagger UI, which is bundled by JHipster, to check out if everything was working as intended. So we just go into the API and see that the new resources are successfully done here. And for example, I just look up which bands are existing, try it out, and I see that's the idea, 1051. And I use it for the next API to check if the song API is working properly. And you see that the result is coming pretty fast. If I do the same here with song result, with the generated API, and say, well, the song has the ID 1101, and try it out, you see that takes a significant amount of time because it's also serializing the song content. So now we want to do the front-end part, and when I was doing this, that took so much time, so I just making a shortcut here. I just copied it from my recent here, because I want for Angular you have to do a lot of more work than in Spring. In Spring it clicks perfectly. You have seen I didn't touch any of the generated file. It is not possible that way with Angular. Wait, I have to. Yeah, I have to open a new directory for all the generated stuff. I have no strict convention how I name it for this talk. I just take it as BS. Come on. Right, who was? So the first thing I do is I extended the band stuff, and it starts with that I opened a new module and imported this way, and I'm doing several stuff here. The first thing is like to connect to my new resource controllers, which I built in the backend. I need a service which changes the public resource URL to the new prefix. Because if we check out how this is generated from JHipster, we will see that we have a public resource URL which is bind to this one, and this variable is used for all the calls here. So if we change it by adding a v1 to here, we automatically change this service. And the next thing is how to actually make this service working in the dependency injection controller of Angular. And the move I do here is this one. Because in a model you have providers. We use the providers to inject the JHipster language service, and it's this way to inject the Angular's the band extended service for all instances of band service. So, and the next thing is I just opened added a song with votes, which is the same interface which I use on a backend. It looks like the same. Here we do extend in the same way the band detail component. By we have to still implement on init, because Angular other way won't do the same this ng on init logic. So we just implement the interface and add it here. If we wouldn't change anything here, we just could say, and then the ng on init run is still working like expected, but we do change something here because we want to load all the songs here, so we don't override it. All the other methods are baked in here, so we don't have to copy it all. Yeah. So the thing is, to hook it into the Angular generated code, we have to change some things. The first thing is that we here have an entity module, and we have to tell him that it's not this one anymore, but it's this. Because, as I said, it is not really possible to avoid this extension here. So if everything is going to work properly, we should now see a new way of here, and I have a changed detail view, and I can place votes on it. And it seems to work, and everyone is happy. And then we take in our Euphoria this stuff to production. Wait, no, that's no, which is yeah, this one. We do this. This is what a CI pipeline is actually doing, and we will notice that it doesn't work with a lot of red stuff. And the thing is that in dev, it's not a problem that we have modules which we are not really using. But if you compile it to production, you run into the issue that we have a ng module here, which includes all those components, but we still have the original one having here, which also declares there. The only way of fixing that I found so far is to comment that out. If someone knows a better way, I would be glad to have this, but it's Angular AOT stuff. So now it starts to run, and if I did everything right, it should. Yeah, I have to do the same for a song as well. Unfortunately. Yeah. When you see that that takes a little bit more time, then you probably know that everything is start to work, because it otherwise would fail here. So that's the way how we can extend this with side-by-side. It worked properly. So now we can make another fun part. We just say, okay, that's cool. What's here? Edit. We comment that stuff, and now we do the evil thing of JHipster upgrade after plenty of changes in the source. And that's one of the scariest commands in JHipster, because if you are working a couple of times in your project, that is the best command to make you another 2 weeks of work, solving all the merge conflicts running out here. But if you're doing side-by-side correctly, of course, in Spring there can't be any problem because I didn't even touch any file. In Angular, I did touch several files, but that's not a problem, because if the upgrades are so that Git fast forward can resolve it on its own, which in this case is possible, you don't have a merge conflict. So as I was only commenting out some code and not really changing actual heavy behavior, this progress runs actually true. So yeah, I have shown you how to upgrade and change application right now, which is still compiling in Angular. It took me several days of figuring out that issue chain here. So if coming to the presentation, I showed you one part is how to do side-by-side, but there is another stuff. When I was presenting all that to my customer, he said, yeah, well, we have a corporate design which we wanted to implement, and it should look likely different than the actual JHipster, because the JHipster design is, I really like it, but the customer sometimes wants something more. So before you start to even implement some entities in your application, you often have to realize a completely different design, because it's the same, it's what your customer wants. First, that involves a lot of generated code change. You can do it side-by-side in some place, but it's not. But if you change the home view, which is generated, there's a hard way to extend this. So you have possibly huge parts of this. So how to deal with it? That's what I call the corporate blueprints. You possibly heard of the blueprint system earlier, even in the last year, and today we had Sendil Command's talk on the Kotlin blueprint. And the actual idea of the blueprint is, like, we support several tech stacks in JHipster, but of course not every tech stack out there. And blueprint is a new way of like extending JHipster in a different way to add new tech stacks. So, but you can also use blueprints to implement the logic, the corporate design logic of your customer, which you hook into your application, so when you generate it, it just look in a way how it should. So, as my customer forced me to do this for a lot of time, I can just say, I can just show you the corporate design which we use for my company Cato. It's available in the NPM store because we have nothing to hide. It's just like the way how it looks. And then JHipster, you take the blueprint, you run this here. The installation progress should go true. It is true. Here. Yeah, come on. I hope this will still work because, yeah, it works. So that's the design which we implemented for my company, which is a little bit different. Actually, there's a little bit more because normally we use this not in a monolith application, but in a gateway coupled to UEA. And if we hit here, we have the other apps. And you see that the navigation is completely different. We have a totally different way how we show the menus here. But we still have all the stuff. Okay, it's unfortunately killed my database, but it shouldn't happen in production. Yeah, but even if I say, well, I create a band, just make it fast. I go it in here. Well, maybe I have to check out where the stuff has gone here, but it can be coupled. It worked when I did it today. That here were my changes. So there's maybe I know what it is, because yes, that it is, because it just overrode this here, but this change is not that big. And if I don't force the question which I did, I could say no to this particular question if I want to extend this one. Here it is. So my changes are back, and the blueprint strategy is an option to to provide even incorporate huge changes, because for my case, since I built that blueprint, we literally generated four or five more front ends. And the first time I was implementing the design, and it was taking me another 2 hours of coding time. After I made this blueprint, all the other 4 applications were just running through. So, and as the blueprint is extending the internal code of the generator to the outside, it just looked like generator JHipster without anything. You can do the side-by-side pattern as you're used to. The only thing is, if JHipster releases a bigger upgrade, you should take care of that your corporate blueprint is still working properly with the upstream of JHipster. If not, you just stick to the older version, or upgrade your blueprint in the first place, and then it should work. I don't know if I'm over my time. I was always over my time when I was 50 minutes. Your first bet was right. So that's it. Yeah, if there are questions, you can ask.
For making your Angular changes, did you take the original Angular module, copy it, and then start changing it?
For the model, I did change it because it depends on how much you want to change your application. For example, I didn't hook too much into the song stuff. So if I open that folder, you see there actually only the song module, which and only the service. I'm not extending the views, so I just have not to copy the route for changing the loaded components and stuff like this. I have only the service, and I just say each time when something is asking for the service, you just provide this. Okay, it's here.
Maybe as a question, but what about making a sub-generator for generating the extended
My colleague is asking me that one each week. So that's in general, there are a few topics we should do on side-by-side, because at the moment we don't have any proper documentation about side-by-side, that's first, and we surely could add some support from the generator side to make the boilerplate for side-by-side also. So I think one more question if it's possible, and yeah. On the user entity itself, I would make a one-on-one relationship to like another entity which is coupled to the user, and make the inner core always connecting the user entity to the user extent entity, because it's the way how I'm actually never touching the user scope, because JHipster will always regenerate it, and you cannot really extend it by GDL. So just make a one-on-one relationship to a user extension entity. And then you can do it all the way here. So I'm definitely over my time right now. Thank you for your audience.